Welcome to the latest episode of the National Leaderology Association podcast. Today, we're going to continue our discussion in mental health and leadership. We are going to dive into building resilience and emotional intelligence. I am your host, Dr. Amin Sanaia, leaderologist, thought leader, and author. I am honored and privileged to be joined today first by my tag team partner and co-host, Tanner Thorp.
Good morning, everyone, or whatever time of the day you're listening to this podcast. I'm Tanner Thorp. So pleased to be here. So excited for our guest that we have on today, and to talk about emotional resilience and how it affects mental health and leadership for sure.
Awesome. And we have a special guest for you today. It's our dear friend, my man, Mr. Juan Santana. Juan, tell us a little bit about yourself, your background, what you're doing.
All right, good morning, everybody, or good afternoon, right, depending on where you are in the world. So I'm excited to be here with you guys today. I come from an IT background, so I've been an IT person my entire life since high school. I'm also a college professor. I'll be celebrating my 15th anniversary this September. So I've been being an educator also. I'm a father of 3, grandfather of 2, being married 4 times to the same person. So just to take that away, I think that Spanish man move around a lot. I haven't. I've been married to my wife for 35 years, 4 separate weddings. But happily married and enjoying life, and an honor to be here with you guys sharing this experience.
Awesome. And if I'm not mistaken, you were married by Elvis once, right?
That's correct. Yes, that was the last wedding. Yes.
Uh-huh. Do you take her to be your wife? Can I get an uh-huh? I love it. I love it.
Good stuff. Good stuff. All right. So, in looking at the topic today, was 2 topics that we're going to dive into: resilience and emotional intelligence. So, looking at resilience first, resilience is the ability to withstand and recover and grow in the face of stressors, of all the demands that we face in life. Sometimes these demands change constantly. It involves adapting positively to adversity, maintaining some kind of balance when you're under pressure. So you want to try to stay away from, being from really an extreme one way or the other, and being able to bounce back. So it's taking on the stressor, trying to stay balanced, and then how do you bounce back? You can't stay down. You got to keep moving forward. With that said, let's look at some examples of resilience building practices. How do you want to start, Tanner? Do you want to go through a few of them? So I have a few that I have listed, but do you want to say a few things before we jump into some of these practices?
No, I think you laid it out there. Let's go into some of these practices and let's have a dialogue about how you put them into action and what they mean, the values and the challenges with all of them. Because when we're talking about resilience is not just given. Nobody just has resilience. It's learned. And it's learned through adversity. It's learned through challenges. And I think what people forget is that it's also learned through success, right? Yes. So when you become successful and you have all of the emotions that go along with being successful at something, you also have to be resilient, as you pointed out, of not falling one extreme or the other, And let's talk about the practices.
Good stuff. Juan, do you want to say anything about resilience before we go into the practices?
Yeah, I agree with everything Tanner said. Having gone through a lot of experience, build, in my professional life, where, sometimes you might not get a promotion, you might get skipped or things like that. And, and you just need to build on that. And I think that our generation can handle it better than this new generation that's coming up. We're built differently. We are definitely built differently than this new generation. We could take a punch. This new generation is not able to take.
Okay,
I can't wait to dive into that.
Well, let's go. I mean, why should we wait? So let's talk about that. So both of us perked when you saw that, Tanner, when Juan said that.
Oh yeah.
So let's talk a little bit about that. Yeah, I mean, how our upbringing. So I'm sure. I mean, me and Tanner have spoken tons about our upbringings, and the way we've had to deal with a lot of adversities, and where nothing was ever handed. It was we had to
earned.
Yeah, we had to earn every single bit. So, Juan, tell us a little bit about that. What are you referring to, and give us some examples of those being able to take a punch and getting back up.
So, being a Latino man, right, in this era, right, and also dark skin, obviously, I have to overcome a lot of obstacles. Right, nothing came easy to me. For everything that I had to do, I had to fight and I have to work very hard. And when things didn't come my way, I just tried harder the next year. I didn't leave that. I didn't just, like now, if you have one of those young kids and they don't get, their promotion or they get a goal, they either turn into drugs or alcohol or whatever is the medium to unwind. I saw that as a motivation just to try harder. Did I deserve that? Probably yes. Did I deserve not to get that promotion or that raise? I'm quite sure that I always have given 110% on everything that I've done. But the reality is that nothing comes easy. And when I work a lot with a lot of youth in the area, and I was telling them, says, regardless of what your degree is, you could be a doctor, you could be a lawyer. You're always going to be Spanish, Latino, Black first before anything. No one's going to look at your degree first. They're first going to look at you and judge you based on what they're seeing and make an assumption just because you're Latino or you're Black, that this is what you are able to do only. And because of that, we always have to work harder than most of the people.
So Juan, so we have a completely different culture that is emerging. It's been emerging over the past 10 to 15 years. More so, I would say, in the past 5 than any. It's elevated in the past 5. Do you feel like there is still that challenge in society today, or is it becoming a little bit more? Is it becoming a little bit more balanced?
It is becoming a little more balanced, and this is why I say that my generation is built differently, right? We could take a punch, right? The young kids that are coming up now, I don't know if they'll be able to handle what I went through. I don't think that they're capable of accepting rejections or accepting failure.
So why do you think that is?
I think it is because of the way we're raising our young kids. I think it comes back all the way back to the roots. How are we raising our kids? When I was a kid, with my brother was a very hyper kid. I remember one day we were at a party with our parents, and he just looked and turned around to my father's friend and says, "I can't stay still." That same kid nowadays will be medicated. My brother's very successful right now. Now, if that same person nowadays gets medicated, will he be able to accomplish what my brother has accomplished throughout his career?
Wow, that's really deep right there. It's making me really think. I know a couple of similar situations where I've heard similar things that kids that are really active or hyper, and it's true in society nowadays, is if you're not normal, what is wrong with you, so let's get you whatever medication you need instead of well, let's accept you with your quirks, but let's kind of build some routines that are going to help you be successful, versus just let's jump in and let's medicate you.
Yeah. You know, it's I've got so many things going on in my brain right now.
I know.
Like so many things. You've brought up
I'm
so many
sorry
good
to
points.
start trouble with you guys.
No, because what we're talking about is resilience, right? And
Yes.
I mean, really, we're this is a leadership podcast, so we're going to start talking about what resilience means in leaders. But foundationally, what you're talking about is how do we build resilience in this generation so that they can be good leaders.
Yes.
And when you're talking about medicating, so I have a 7-year-old son. He is my spirit animal. I mean, he is me personified when I was his age. And I was a very intelligent, but very unfocused child. Right. So, and I think part of what I recognize with him is some of the things that I could not quantify or explain about myself when I was 7 years old or 8 years old, or challenged with those types of things. And we have had doctors say, that he probably has ADD or ADHD, and he probably needs a medicine. And my ex-wife and I, we co-parent very, very well. And the conversation has been, no, we're not going to put him on medicine. There has to be a different learning modality for him, right? Because I know that I am a very much outside of the box thinker.
Yes.
Right. If you tell me that 2 + 2 = 4, I'm going to argue that so does 3 + 1, or 1 + 1 + 1 + 1. Right. There, it's not always as simple as 2 + 2. And it's just how my brain works. You tell me that a square peg can't fit in a round hole, I'm going to figure out how I open the box and get it inside. Right. So with him, what we're looking at is, what are some other types of schooling that we could put him into? And I don't think there's enough, there isn't enough examination yet, enough focus yet on that, but I do believe that it's happening right now, of recognizing that it's not just simple as medication. It's how do we get the kid or the person to find an adaptive learning modality that will help them with those focus issues. And we're talking about resilience. We grew up in a generation where our parents weren't afraid to spank us, and we knew not to act out. We knew not to act a fool, because we would get disciplined for it. But I remember, so my parents raised me a little bit different, and like I said, I was a very extroverted, outside of the box type of child. And when I was 10 years old, I got in trouble for stealing a little pin at a local grocery store. And my stepdad had a conversation with me when I got home. And it was a conversation that resonated with me. It still resonates with me to this day. He said, "Tanner, you're 10 years old. I'm not going to spank you. I'm not going to ground you. We've done the work of teaching you the difference between right and wrong. You know the difference between right and wrong, and you have to live with the decisions that you make. So I'm going to tell you right now, at 10 years old, that if you get caught for stealing and you go to jail, don't call me. I'm not coming to bail you out. Right? You get to own the decisions that you make in life."
Wow.
And at 10 years old, I mean, imagine a 10-year-old still very infantile mindset, but it's stuck with me to this day. Like, I own the decisions that I make, good, bad, or indifferent.
Yep.
Right. And it was probably the first true opportunity for my brain to develop resilience. Right. I had to sit in the decision that I made, and I had to own it. And moving forward, I'd love to say that every decision I made was a good decision and I never got in trouble. And
but that's not real.
You're here with us. You're here with us.
Yeah, that's not reality. But the reality is, understanding the child, understanding the person, and how you teach them grows their resilience. Not everybody is the same. And I got to say one more thing, because we're talking about generational differences too. The generation before us thought we were idiots. They thought we were never going to be able to make it the way that they made it, right? And while we see the weaknesses of the generations that are coming after us, we also have to recognize that they live in a completely different world than what we grew up in. You know, they have everything at their fingertips in a way that we never did. You know, if we wanted to know the life cycle of a blue whale, we had to go get an Encyclopedia Britannica, right? They want to know the life cycle of a blue whale. It's at their fingertips in a heartbeat, right? And good, bad, or indifferent, so is everything else. So is, I mean, the pervasiveness of social media, so is politics, so is everything on the planet is available like that in a way that we never had. And so again, we have to look at, you know, what makes the generation different? How did they learn differently than we did? How can we impart the knowledge that we have in a way that they're going to resonate with? And how does that help them grow their resilience?
Woo. Okay. So, and let me bring it back into in the leadership sense, Tanner. So I mean, you said a bunch. I mean, so many.
That's a lot. Sorry.
No, a lot of powerful things, and I want to touch on a few of them. And thank you, Juan, for opening up this Pandora's box here for us.
Awesome.
Yeah, it was amazing. So first, when we look at in the resilient sense of our newer generation not being able to, I will say, they haven't had the opportunities to be as resilient as we were growing up, because we were given the freedom to, hey, you go outside, you go play, you go hurt yourself. If you fall,
Right.
get up. And sort of that deal. And right now, there's a lot of I guess parenting where it's like you're in a box and you're in a controlled environment, or you're giving a tablet and just stay there and play with your tablet. So it kind of doesn't allow you to get into trouble or do things where you're going to get hurt and be like, oh, okay, well, that hurt. Maybe I shouldn't do that. And I think that's part of the things of we looking at this newer generation that's a bit naive in a sense where they haven't had to experience some of the challenges we've had. But if we look at it in the workplace, and I know, Tanner, you and I have worked in the workplaces where we've had people that are a little bit different. So they're really, really super smart in one sense, but then don't have a lot of experience, or I would say a little bit of not common sense in other things. So what have we done? I mean, we lean into what they're good at. So you lean into what they're good at, while in that process, you allow them to grow that resilience where you just give them little bits of pieces at a time that they're going to get challenged with. So I know we've had a couple of people that they're brilliant, but they're not being exposed enough to working with people, working with different types of people, dealing with challenges. So we've had to help them come out of their shell a little bit and really allow them to have that the exposure of having multiple conversations, sometimes hard conversations, where it might put them in an uncomfortable place, but it allows them to grow. And that's the cool thing for, I would say, for us, for me. I know you like that as well, Tanner, with allowing people to grow, but it is for younger leaders. That is one of the I would say one of the biggest challenges in today's workplace when you have younger teams, is that we allow them to have experiences. We allow them to be able to grow within the workplace environment that is a little bit controlled, but still allow them to run into problems and try to build that resilience. Juan, how do you feel about that?
That's a good point. So I'm gonna probably start to open another box here for you guys. So here's when I was in a management position, right? I found that my job was to find my replacement, right? I want to grow in the organization, which means I need to have somebody that could take my place. So my job is always to find that person and help that person grow. I don't see that nowadays. I see that people are more protective of their job than anything else. They don't want to find the next replacement. They want to keep their job. They're afraid to grow because they're afraid that they're not going to be something next for them. So you don't see that leadership where someone is trying to build that next manager or the next advice or whatever it is that you're doing. You don't see anybody building their replacement. It's more protected. This is my job. I'm going to guard it with my life. And then it prevents people from growing. And there are some good people that are capable of growing into those leadership positions. And there's some they're just worker bees. And as a manager, you need to know who those people are. Your job as a manager is to identify your team, know where the strengths and the weaknesses are, and build on it. And be able to find who can replace you because you want to grow. I remember I had a manager, they asked me that question, which I hate the most, where you see yourself in 5 years. And I told them, I see myself with your job. Because what am I supposed to answer? I don't want to be doing this. I want to grow. So my next step is to replace you. So in 5 years, I see myself with your job.
Ooh, Tanner, you want to hit that?
Yeah, so it's interesting what you bring up because I see a lot of in this newer generation, and this is part of that resilience piece. Not so much I'm protective of my job and I don't want to grow into another job. I see a lot of I don't want your job because of all the stress and the responsibility that I see that goes along with it.
Yep.
And I think that's a shift that I didn't expect because like you, Juan, I mean, it's always been who's going to be my next replacement? Who's going to take my job when I leave, right? And in the culinary world, I mean, people are usually hungry to be an executive chef, right? Like your cooks want to grow. They want that, whether that's that white coat or that toque, the chef hat that by size makes a difference of how important you are in the hierarchy of the kitchen. But in leadership, specifically management roles, I see a lot more of the I don't want that level of I'm happy in my role. And if you want me to do something different, I'm happy to do something different and learn across this line almost. But I don't want to take that next step up because I see the stress and the responsibility involved, and I don't want to do that. And I think that's an important distinction in that resilience. And in how are we showing them that the growth is positive, not detrimental to their personal life, because that's also another really dynamic shift that's happened is that when we were coming up, working a lot of hours was seen as being successful. Like that was a productive equation, right? And specifically coming up in kind of the nuclear family household coming out of the 60s, 70s, and 80s, the patriarch went to work while the matriarch stayed home and kept the house. And so it was a single income family type of dynamic, and so it was kind of accepted that whoever was the breadwinner in the household would be working a lot of hours and sacrifice that work-life balance. And now the newer generations, and I'm the same way. Like I'm very protective of my work-life balance now. You know, we recognize the healthy benefits of that. And so there's also that goes into this shift in growth for people. You know, either I don't want the responsibility and the struggles that come along with it, or I don't want to work as many hours because I want to protect my work-life balance.
Yeah, I mean that's what you're saying there is pretty insightful. Um, so one of the things that's interesting in what you say, which is very true, by the way, that you have a lot of people now that look at people in director, VP levels or senior leadership positions, is that, oh, I don't want to do that. I mean, look at that person. Wow, that person is about to have a heart attack. I don't want that struggle. So in a sense, if we don't do what you've mentioned there at the end, Tanner, is finding some kind of balance, whatever that is, and it's different per person, where we truly are enjoying what we're doing, as far as work-wise, but we're complementing also our personal lives, because there has to be some kind of ways where we actually are enjoying our lives, and it's not just we're going to work, be stressed to the max 24/7. That's just a recipe for all kinds of health problems, health issues in the long run, where we end up very sick. I mean, I went through that in my life at the beginning of my career, thinking, and I've mentioned that in some of our episodes, because it was just what you said. I had to work the most amount of hours that, and that's false. We want people to work very smart, but you also want to have fun. You want to have fun all the time, right? So you have to find that where people are looking at you and in your positions, if you're in leadership positions, and say, hey, I want to do that. That looks fun. While yes, it's important, the work that we do when you're entrusted in a leadership position, because you're entrusted with people's lives and their livelihood, pretty much, that you're doing it in a way where it's meaningful for the people you're serving, but it's also meaningful to you because you're fulfilling something in your life by being able to help those people and show that you can not only work very smart, or I don't like to use the word hard. We talked about that already.
Yeah.
But that you're showing that, hey, we can do this very effectively. I can be very successful, but also I can have a lot of fun.
Yeah. There's a great conversation with Simon Sinek, and he said that, there's the saying, work hard, play hard. And he said that's one of the most detrimental sayings that you can use, because what it implies is that you have to work super hard, and then when you have your free time, you have to play super hard. And it creates this toxic mindset of, how am I playing? I'm getting off work and on my weekends, I'm, just going and partying. And he said the better saying is to work smart, play always. Right? Because that changes that dynamic, that yes, we're working smart and efficiently, but we're always having fun.
I recall when I was younger, my young age, and working, and I work a lot of hours. Well, I was at a project out of the country, and I remember a friend of mine asking me, what date is it? And my answer is, doesn't matter. If we're awake, we're in the office. It didn't matter what day of the week was. If we were awake, we were in here.
Yeah, that's hard right there.
So that segues perfectly, Juan. So you had that experience. How have you transcended from that into emotional resilience, where you do have that balance, and how do you help others around you recognize how healthy that is?
Well, now that I'm a whole different work environment than when I was young. I mean, before, 12 hours was a half a day. I, getting a phone call on a Friday night, stepping out and coming back Monday night was normal for me. Now the work environment, I mean, it's completely different. It's definitely, for the first time, I find myself that, by 5 o'clock, I'm home. Latest 5:30. Uh, but I got a lot of young kids that are working with us. Right? And they always keep asking me the question, how did you find time to do everything you do? Because I am very involved, not just at work, but outside of work. I teach, I mentor, I play softball. I used to coach a little league. Uh, but for me, that's medicine. Doing all that extra stuff,
There you go.
it's a way for me to relax.
Yeah.
The teaching, I love the teaching part. When I was coaching, yeah, we'll go on the weekends and spend the weekends at the park coaching kids, and then to this day now, a lot of those kids that I coach, they call me up to see how am I doing. Hey, coach, how you doing? They stay in, we make that connection. And for me, that's medicine. That's my medicine for me. Be able to get forward, and mentor some of these young kids and young minds. And yeah, we need to find the balance. And I think there's a lot of benefit now that I have a balance to Amin's point. Yes, I went through a lot of health issues because, working all those hours, you end up taking all kinds of medication because, one, you're not eating healthy. You're always eating on the rush. Being in New York City, you eat and walk at the same time. If you can't eat and walk at the same time, you won't survive in New York City. You have to be able to do all that stuff.
Right.
And it's a reality. When I go to some of the offices, not in New York City, when I go to the state, they go out to lunch for an hour and a half. It's like, I've never seen that before. My lunches are usually at my desk, while I'm in a meeting and eating a sandwich or something. And now they're healthier as food either. So you put all that together, that compounds and builds, so a lot of the senior managers that are now there, they do have a lot of health issues because of the way that they came up. This new generation now, they'll go to the gym in the morning. I see all the young kids coming into the office with a lunch bag, all kinds of healthy food, nah, healthy food for us was a bag of potato chips.
Right.
Not
Because
a
it's
granola
potatoes,
bar.
right?
Yes. Yeah.
It's a vegetable.
Yes. See, I always knew it was a vegetable. Yeah.
Yeah.
But I told the kids, especially I work with a couple of young guys, to need to find that balance. If you need to take the day off, you know what? The project still be there. Take the day off. You have a young kid, spend time with the young kid. I miss a lot of my kids' activity growing up because I was out of the country.
Yeah.
I don't wish that on anybody.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah. Let's not go down that rabbit hole yet. So, this is supposed to be a two-topic podcast. Obviously, we went down a rabbit hole. What we usually do.
How does that happen? That never happens on our podcast.
I have no idea. So what we'll do
That's what happened when you invite a rookie into your podcast.
No. You came heavy hitter like an all-star, Juan.
Yeah,
so
absolutely. So we're gonna continue down the resilience piece. I'm gonna just post our question that we were going to spend a lot of time on. So, but we will spend only like 10, 15 more minutes that we have. And then we'll continue a second piece to do the emotional intelligence, because that's really important, and that's gonna take time for us to do. So, how can leaders cultivate resilience within themselves and their teams to better handle workplace stress? That's a big question. So I want to divide it into a series of subsections. And the first one that I want us to touch upon is the adaptability to change.
Mm-hmm.
And let's talk a little bit about that. So leaders often navigate uncertain and volatile environments, right? I mean, we've talked a little bit about that in our conversations here in the past 30, 40 minutes. Resilience allows them to adapt quickly to change, ensuring that their teams can pivot strategies effectively without losing momentum. So I'll let you guys jump in, but later on I want to talk. I want to present, an example of change and how to adapt to it. So whoever wants to jump in.
Yeah, so I'm gonna open up with this. So I think, touching on something that Juan said earlier about people being protective of their jobs. I think that's it's a different mindset now. So when you look at this newer generation, their propensity to change jobs is much higher than it was when we were coming up. So I think the average right now for Gen Z is they're at a job 2 to 3 years before they change to another job.
It's less
so
now.
when you change jobs that frequently, you do develop a resilience to change, right? Because you're learning new ways, you're learning new processes, you're learning new procedures. But as a leader, so I'm a change agent, right? Like I love change, and it's how I was built. It's how my brain works. But there's a lot of people that love their box. One of my favorite stories is I worked with this lady named Leslie, and she her favorite job she ever had in her life was she twisted water ski rope at a water ski rope factory, and she stood inside this yellow painted box, right? And all she did for 8 hours was stand inside that yellow painted square. Favorite job ever, because she didn't have to think. It was mindless for her. So it's recognizing which of your players need the box and which of them are those outside of the box thinkers, and they need change. And it goes back to what we were talking about with kids and learning modalities and understanding how different individuals learn. I think that's really one of the key pieces of being a good leader is you understand your people.
Yes.
And you prepare them for change by talking about the things that are coming up, right? And learning different processes. We use a process called Scrum. And while Scrum doesn't usually it's not usually based in the industry that we're in. It's more of an IT manufacturing modality, but it follows a lot of the same things as kind of Lean Six Sigma. It's an agile learning process. But one of the most important things about Scrum is that you know what the end goal is, you know what the project end is, but you stop and check at certain points along the way to make sure that the end goal is still really what you want. And I think that's probably the most key piece of that agile learning is the end goal can change. And understanding that the end goal can change allows your team to have the freedom to say, okay, this may not work this way, or let's try something new this way, or I'm seeing that this may be a problem. Those things help build that resilience to change and help their critical thinking, because really that's what we're talking about.
Yep. Absolutely. Go ahead, Juan, jump in.
I understand, Tanner. I am an Agile Master. I am Scrum certified. I live and breathe Scrum on a daily basis.
I had a feeling you would be being in the IT industry. It really is an IT based modality.
Yeah, I live and breathe that every day. In the Scrum. So that's my entire morning is joining Scrum meetings. Now, I even forgot what the question was about.
Adaptability.
It was when he switched to Agile, it took me off guard. So, Agile, I can talk about this.
Yeah. We're talking about adaptability change.
Adaptability. So now I came back. So my background being IT, I am by nature a mainframe guy. If I would have remained a mainframe guy, I would have been unemployed now. Or either working for one of those few companies still using mainframes, charging a lot of money. One of those two, right? But I decided that I needed to change. I needed to adapt myself as technology was changing. So I'm always being good about adapting to changes because I want to stay relevant. And first of all, I want to continue working. Right? If the technology that I work with becomes obsolete and I don't change, then I become obsolete. So I'm always being a change agent, even at work. Every time there's a new change coming out, I'm the first person that they go to so I can help promote the changes in the organization. So I've always been very adaptable, and it's, I've worked with some guys that are not, and unfortunately, some of them, because of the nature, had to switch career completely because they didn't adapt to the technology as it was changing. So some of them, they left the IT industry overall and started doing something else, because at the end of the day, you still have a family that you have to support, and you have to, to be able to provide for your family. That's our end goal, as a husband, as a father, is to provide to our family. Uh, so I've always been adaptable. I always welcome changes. Uh, we're going through changes now as we speak, with this whole AI that is evolving. How are
Yep.
we going to embrace AI now? This is, a lot of, still to come. And AI is moving at a faster pace than any technology has ever moved. So it's interesting. And for that, we need the young kids to come in, because they can embrace that whole AI technology. But as they embrace that technology, I always like to find those strong guys and tag along with them, so I could learn and adapt and change as those changes are coming up.
That's awesome right there.
Yeah.
And yes, I mean, it's AI is coming very fast, a very fast pace. So it's either embrace it, learn it, and learn how the AI is going to affect your workplace, your everyone's role, or or a lot of these organizations are gonna get left behind, or the people that do not embrace it, they're going to unfortunately be obsolete, because you don't have a choice.
Yeah,
Yeah.
don't have a choice. AI is here, and you gotta, it's gonna be in our cars. It's already in our phones. So
Yeah, and what's powerful about what you said also, Juan, is as a good leader, you're learning from your people,
Yep.
right? Because you recognize that they're coming in with a different skill set than what you had, and change goes both ways.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
I don't know everything, and
Oh, I proudly don't know
nobody expect me
everything.
to know everything. So I need, when I have my team, I know what they're capable of, and I know who to go to when I need to find
Yeah,
some information.
beautiful.
Yeah.
I love it.
Knowing your people. Have to know your people. That the another piece of this is role modeling. So role modeling, man, I've had to evolve so much in my life, because at first, when I became a leader, I thought it was again about working 25 hours in a 24-hour period. I had to know everything, do everything, which is not a good way to really lead people. So as I evolve as a leader and learn that you are, whether you want to or not, when you're in a leadership position, people are looking up to you. That just comes with the territory. If you can think otherwise or feel otherwise, but it is truly, you have all eyes on you, and people are going to do maybe half of what you do right, but everything you do wrong. So uh learn, I would say 10, was a little bit over 10 years in being into my leadership position, that working so many hours, but then telling people that you should have, find balance and learn how to do other things with your life, and not doing it, but just saying it, you're really like, okay, what is this guy about? Until someone called me out on it. So I had a young leader. He's like, yeah, you're always giving us, great tips and stuff like that. And you talk about, having, not having to work as many hours because, it doesn't, and, and we had a longer conversation. And I was like, I had to go home and really think about that and be like, wow. So I'm saying all these things, but I'm not modeling that behavior. That was really eye-opening. So when we look at being in leadership positions and that resilience piece, um, really think about, are you modeling the right behavior? Are you modeling that behavior that you want your teams to follow? that can be very powerful.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I remember I was in a leadership position. Culinary industry can be gruff at times. And I was in a leadership position. I was with a sous chef, and we were in a location doing a private catering. And the sous chef, the director, and myself we were over in an area where we thought we were just kind of by ourselves. And I told an unsavory joke, and everybody around me thought it was funny. We were having that clever banter, but what I didn't realize was that there was another sous chef who was within earshot, and she heard it, and she was very offended by it, and she went to her leader, who was the leader of all of us, and made a formal complaint. And so not only did I have to recognize that, one, time and place, know your audience, and it's important to recognize that there are things that just shouldn't be said, but at the same time, what I was role modeling to my team was that it was okay to do things that are not okay. And I went and apologized, and I took my hits for it. But as leaders, we have to do better. We have to present really what we expect. And I'd love to say that I'm perfect at that now, but I'm not. I am a beautifully flawed individual. And I am outgoing, and I am gregarious, and I am that's part of what makes me lovable, right? That's part of what makes people follow me. So at the same time, I have to be very conscious of how my behavior is role modeling to those that, again, I'm trying to graduate into my position.
Juan, jump in there, man.
Yeah, I'm one of the leaders that like to lead by example. Right? I won't never ask somebody to do something I wouldn't do. What do I mean by that? In IT, when we have IT changes or IT deployments, they usually happen at 2, 3 o'clock in the morning, on the weekends, during holidays, all kinds. I'm in all those calls. I'm in all those meetings with my team. I'm not going to ask my team to give up a weekend for deployment while I'm sitting somewhere at the beach enjoying myself. So I always make myself present. If you're going to do it, then I can do it. I'm not going to ask something of you that I wouldn't do myself. So I like to lead by example. So that's the way I always go. And this is something that I learned very early. I was very blessed in my career that I had a really good manager at the beginning of my career who always put his people first. His priority was not the targets. We're not delivering the proper software. His target was the people. His job was to take care of his team. That was his number one priority. And because of that, everything worked great because it was a very happy environment. And yes, we worked a lot of hours, but it didn't feel like we were working a lot of hours because it was all cohesive and all happy. And he took care of his team. Christmas, he took everybody out for Christmas. Says, bring your family. How many bosses bring your family out, for a party or, company holiday? And he was great. And that stayed with me. And I always try to do that, put people's first before anything else. And I have people that jump into meetings with me and I could hear in their voice that they're sick, that I could hear their coughing. And I says, why are you in this call? Take the day off, take medicine, take time for yourself. The rest of this is a team effort. So somebody else in the team can cover while you're out. It's not about one person, it's about the team. So, you got to put your priorities, first, your health and you first before anything else. The task will still be here tomorrow or next week.
Yep.
Without a doubt. Yeah, that's people first. All right, we're gonna close out with enhanced decision making. So as we build that resilient muscle as leaders, that allows us to number one, be able to recognize situations that are going to be issues, and probably stay away from crisis mode, which is hard as a leader. But as we go through that, we also are able to recognize that, hey, we're going to have to make some hard decisions here pretty quick. And you can build that muscle by the experiences you have, but also being mindful and present as the journey goes along, and you see that there are situations that are not going the right way, and not waiting until, quote unquote, shit hits the fan, but making those hard decisions before it does, so that you don't get to that piece. So as leaders, you're going to need to run into situations where you are going to need to have clear head, be calm in the middle of a storm, so that you can make those decisions. And that doesn't happen. That's not an innate ability, and that doesn't happen overnight. That happens with, being there, and really being intentful when there's hard situations going on, that you practice those moments of like, okay, I need to focus on this and only this. So I have to clear my head and stay calm, keep emotions away, and really listen to all the facts so that I can make the right decision.
Yeah, go ahead, Juan. Go ahead.
Oh yeah, I have a great story for that one. So I was given a nickname for fireman. One of the CIO told me, "You are the best fireman I have." And this is in IT, right? Obviously, you're not putting on fire. But what he meant by that is, when there's a hard situation, something's going on, I go in. I don't sit down to think about it, analyze it. Let's set up a meeting. Let's go into a conference room. I go in and I put out the fire. I go in heads first, boom, let's get this done. There's an issue. I spent 20 years in IT working in finance. Every second counts in finance. So I don't have time to sit around, analyze, and get the root cause and why did this happen. No, the fire needs to be put out now, before it gets worse. So, I was given the nickname, the best, fireman, because when there was an issue, who you want to go in, you send your best fireman in, I'll go in and I'll take care of the issue. I'll put out the fire and the business continues.
I like that. The fireman. When you said the fireman, the first thing that came to my head was that you were good at laying people off, those tough decisions. So no, I love that analogy. I love that nickname. I think it's super important in one, when we have to make tough decisions and we're the leader and there's the critical thinking piece and they're difficult, hard decisions. How are we holding space for ourselves? How are we taking a step back and composing ourselves before our teams see that, it's stressful on us too. The other piece is, how do we hold space for our teams when they have to make hard decisions or they make mistakes, right? Because that's how it builds their resilience. Do we admonish them and berate them and talk down to them, make them feel terrible about themselves? Or do we walk with them through it in this was a bad decision, or this is a hard situation that we're in? Young leaders often, when they make a mistake, they're so scared they're going to get fired, right? They're so scared they're going to lose their job. And it's difficult when those situations arrive where somebody makes a bad decision that does result in their termination. You also have to walk with them through that, instead of making them feel terrible about themselves and what they did, help them own the bad decision, coach them through it, even if it means coaching them out, and letting them know that you're going to make bad decisions in life, right? There's going to be some things that just don't go your way. There's going to be some situations that are out of your control, and how you maintain your composure through that, how you build your resilience through that, and how you handle those around you through that speaks volumes about who you are and who you're going to be.
Yeah, I have to say one of my worst ever experience as a manager was to letting go somebody.
Mhm.
Terminating somebody obviously is not easy because you're impacting someone's life,
Yeah.
and it was hard. I mean, it was so hard. I I, I felt at ease. Obviously, we call the person, you have the meeting with HR, you go through the motion, but afterward, he thanked me. He says, "Thank you for the opportunity to have worked with you," uh, and that really resonated with me because
Yeah.
I was feeling bad, but because the way I treat everybody, putting people first, he was still grateful. He lost his job, but he was still grateful that he had opportunity to work for somebody like me.
Yeah.
Uh, Not that I'm going to go and start firing people now because they're going to feel good anyway. But
No, but that speaks
Yeah.
to you as a leader. I
Yes.
have there's a couple of people that I've had to terminate that I still talk to today. And they were same thing, grateful for the opportunity. They understand and own their piece of it, and they know how it helped them grow. The other thing, Amin and I've talked about this before. We both had to be parts of RIFs,
Yeah.
reduction in force,
That was hard.
and that's tough because it's nobody's fault.
Mhm.
You have to let people go because of bad decisions in the business, or bad decisions, or bad situations in the marketplace. And those are really, really tough conversations, because
I
no one's at fault.
Yeah, the first time that I remember, I had a manager. He wanted me to let go somebody right before the Christmas holiday. And I
Yeah.
said, sorry,
Um,
I'm not
I,
going to do that. If you want to, you do it yourself, but I'm not
Yeah.
going to do that right before the holiday. You could do it after the holiday, but I'm not. If you want to do it, you go ahead and do it. But I'm not, right a week before Christmas holiday, terminate somebody.
Yeah, I know Amin he's shared on this podcast a couple
yeah.
of times a very, very similar story, you
Yeah.
know.
Yeah, that's hard. And when people don't have, and that's good. That goes to speak to the emotional maturity piece, where we can get into with emotional intelligence on the next episode. Is that right there? Is knowing how your decisions affect everyone else, and that's a big piece of being a leader. Is that you're not making decisions just for your sake or the sake of the organization, you're also affecting a lot of people and their families. So keep being mindful that that's what happens when you make decisions. Will all and if following your the way you are leading your teams, Juan, about making it about people, you're always going to be successful no matter what. When you keep it as it's about people.
Yep.
All right, so let's wrap up here. We're a little bit over an hour now. In talking about resilience, it's been a great conversation. We went down a couple of rabbit holes there, as usually. That's what happens in our podcast. So welcome to our podcast. Resilience is a critical quality for leaders. Enables them to guide their teams through adversity, but also helps you maintain high performance. It creates a culture of strength and adaptability. That building that muscle of being able to bounce back is so critical to businesses, because that's in order for business to survive, you have to have that. There's not one business or organization in the world that doesn't run into potholes, or that run into a situation where, man, we're in trouble. What do we do? So you have to have that. You have to have the bounce back ability, being adaptable, so that you can sustain performance for the long run. It's not just living for today. You also have to remember that there is no end goal or end to the business. There, you have to look at the being successful and being able to perform at uh, a high pace for the long run, not just for today. We spoke about role modeling. That's something that is very near and dear to our hearts. And finally, with making sure that decision-making is at the heart of what we're doing. So thank you everyone for joining us today. Please look forward to the second part of this with emotional intelligence. Have a good one.
Thanks, everyone.
All right, thank you so much.